Today's reading from the Heart of Awareness, Ashtavakra Gita. This section is called the Clear Space of Awareness. Detached from the senses, you are free. Attached, you are bound. When this is understood, you may live as you please. When this is understood, the person who is bright and busy and full of fine words falls silent, does nothing, is still. No wonder those who wish to enjoy the world shun this understanding. You are not your body. Your body is not you. You are not the doer, not the enjoyer. You are pure awareness, the witness of all things. You are without expectation, free. Wherever you go, be happy. Desire and aversion are of the mind. The mind is never yours. You are free from its turmoil. You are awareness itself, never changing. Wherever you go, be happy. The self is in all beings, and all beings are in the self. Know you are free. Free of I, free of mine, and be happy. In you the worlds arise, like waves in the sea. It is true. You are awareness itself. So free yourself from the fever of the world. Have faith. Have faith. Do not be bewildered, for you are beyond all things. The heart of all knowing. You are the self. You are God. The body is confined by its natural properties. It comes, it lingers a while, it goes. But the self neither comes nor goes. So why grieve for the body? If the body lasted till the end of time, or vanished today, what would you win or lose? You are pure awareness. You are the endless sea, in whom all the worlds, like waves, naturally rise and fall. You have nothing to win and nothing to lose. You are pure awareness, nothing less. You and the world are one. So who you think you are, you can hold on to it or you can let it go. You are the clear space of awareness, pure and still, in whom there is no birth, no activity, no I. You are one and the same, and you cannot change or die. You are in whatever you see, you alone. Just as bracelets and bangles and dancing anklets are all of the same gold. I am not this, I am he. Give up such distinctions. Know that everything is the self. Rid yourself of all purpose and be happy. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So in these writings that I've been reading over the last few weeks that come down from the sage Ashtrabhakya, he keeps making this point, doesn't he, that we're already free. And he just keeps stripping everything away that we think we are. So here he's talking about body, and then he's talking about mind, and he's talking about what we imagine ourselves to be. But this is a difficult thing for most of us to do, just to keep letting go of what we think we are, or what we've been conditioned to believe we are, by society, by our families, by our experience. We keep thinking that we are limited. And what the sages keep saying is, don't believe it. Come back to who you are before your thoughts and before your experiences, to this moment. It's in this moment that we're able to see that we're already free. But even though we may have this glimpse of our own freedom, lately I've been hearing from people how frustrating it is for them when they've had some glimpse of their own freedom, of their own understanding, of their own knowing of who they are as awareness and consciousness itself. And then it seems to disappear again. There's a frustration that arises because it doesn't stay. So I just wanted to share with you that if that's happening for you, try to remember that you have had a glimpse. That's why you're here. It's why you keep coming here. You've had some glimpse of freedom. You've had some glimpse of knowing that you're beyond the daily experiences that you have, beyond the experiences of the body and the mind. That there is some knowing that you are the heart of being. And yet, it doesn't stick. So when this is happening, if it's happening for you, understand that having the glimpse means that you are right to have it again. Because you're not seeing right now in this moment, if that's what's happening for you. If you're still feeling in some way bound, remember that you've had a glimpse at your own nature, and that one day it will come again, but not through the mind, not through reading more books, or whatever your particular path is, but just simply by relaxing and knowing that your freedom is always here, whether you personally can see it or not. The reason we have to do this is because if we feel like we're taking things personally, when we say, oh, I'm just not feeling very awake right now, and we take that personally, then we reinforce that stance. So when we remind ourselves, even when we don't feel that it may be true of us at that moment, that we are awareness itself, and that we're before our experiences, we're prior to our thoughts in our mind, we're prior to our feelings, our emotions. When we remind ourselves of that, we open the gateway again for the true nature, that sense of beingness which we are, to come flooding in at some unexpected moment. So in a way, you could say our task is just to hold the door open. And not believe what the mind is telling us, even when the mind is saying, oh no, the door is shut. You say, no, no. In my heart, the door is open. You just keep coming back to this place. This is also a place that we can hold those around us. Because in some ways we do know that I am that which is aware. I am consciousness. And we come to this place because we have some inkling within ourselves that that is our true nature. So now we have to offer that to everyone else. So that not only when we're behaving badly are we open, but we're also aware that when others are struggling and having difficulty and behaving badly, that their door is just momentarily closed. But they also know in some way. Everyone knows in some way that they are here and they are awake. But for some, the forgetting is more dense than with others. So if you feel fortunate enough to know most of the time, or to remember relatively quickly that you are aware, that you are here now, then also offer that to others. When we do this, it speeds us along the path for us. We not only don't close our hearts to ourselves, we don't close our hearts to the world. And as Astravakya says, that's because the world that we see is really just ourselves. You know, experiences happen just in the way they happen, right? Life is just what it is, it goes on. We trap ourselves in our minds. We don't just let things be the way they are. We make decisions about them. We have commentary in the mind about them. We say, well, I like that, I don't like that. I will, I'll be with this person, but I won't be with that person. Right? This is what the mind does. So the mind doesn't just let things lie. And in a way, we can say that this is our practice of being in the world, is just to allow things to be as they are. Allow people to be as they are. We remain as open and as loving and as kind as we can. Remember the Dalai Lama once said, "My religion is kindness." Well, this of course begins with us, right? When our minds are struggling, when our hearts feel like they're closed, then we have to be kind toward ourselves. But then we have to extend that to those around us too, and to the world that we see, because this world is a challenging place, isn't it? Seems so. But our task is to remain as loving and as open and as kind as we are able to, without judging ourselves when we don't live up to our high ideals. Just to recognize that life is as it is, and leave everything alone, and allow ourselves to relax, to enjoy, and to love. us to keep enjoying, to keep loving, is that we keep coming back to the stillness that we find when we're here in satsang, being supported by each other and by the space. That thing that keeps drawing us back is really the silence, isn't it? It's not the words, it's not the books, it's not the readings. Although they help, they are supports. But really we just keep coming back because we're attracted to this silence that's in our own being. Even if we don't feel like it's there very often for us, when we come to satsang, we sit in the company of others who know something of this inner knowing themselves. Then we can feel the peacefulness of our own nature. And this is our practice when we're in the world as well. Even though we come into difficulty, even though we don't understand an experience we're having, or we have some reaction to it, we just keep coming back to this quiet and still nature that we have. And by doing that over and over, we strengthen it. We make it our firm foundation. And then we carry it with us throughout all of our experience. And this has the most direct impact on the world. So if we want to change the world, first we become still. We find this peacefulness, this kindness, this love within ourselves, and then we move out into the world with that. And if for a moment we lose touch with that, as soon as we're able, we come back to it. And over time, we get to this understanding and to this inner knowing that enables us to be in the world in this loving and kind and generous way. All the time. So this game, or this pursuit of awakening, is really about having some glimpse into knowing who you are, and then testing the foundation of that, or the firmness of that, as you go about your daily tasks. And knowing when you've been pulled off your foundation, and knowing when to step back onto it, and root yourself down in the foundation of stillness, of kindness. It's a simple practice. It's not complicated. It can seem complicated if you read a lot of books and watch a lot of videos. It can seem complicated, but it's not. Coming back to your nature, as some have said, is closer than your breath. Right? Your nature is closer than your breath. This is why some of the spiritual traditions put a great emphasis on being mindful of your breathing, being aware that you are breathing, because it helps you to know I'm here and that I'm aware and I'm here now. Right? So if you put the attention on the breath, it's pretty obvious to you that you have to be here now. You can't be somewhere else, because as soon as you're somewhere else in your mind or in your heart, you don't notice that you're breathing anymore. So this is why this tool is used a lot in the spiritual traditions, is because the one thing we always have with us in the physical sense is our breath. It's always close, so we can come back to it. But the object is not to be perfect in some way in our breath. The object is to come here now, from wherever we were, and whatever thought strain, whatever train of thought we had, whatever was going on in our heart, whatever was happening in our emotions, whatever was happening in our experience, to come back into the present moment. We come back to the body first through the breath, and then we can sink more deeply into our nature, which is closer than the breath. Simple practices. So I recommend to you that you keep your practice simple. Don't let it get too complicated, following the mind around thinking that you're going to somehow understand who you are by figuring it out with the mind. It's not going to happen. The reason it's called your true nature is because it's already here. It's nature itself, the nature of life. So often we overlook it though. We become attracted to and distracted by the experiences, by the thoughts, by the emotions, by the conditioning that we've been carrying around for many, many years. And so we forget, oh, it's as natural as breathing. I am here. Ah, yes, that's right. So keep coming back in this simple way to here now. You might be surprised how rapidly you unfold as your own stillness and your own quiet, just by doing this simple practice. So, welcome. This is your first time here.
Yes.
Welcome. How are things going for you?
Well,
Good.
silence is helping. Still mountain.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
You? Good. Welcome back. How was your trip?
It was wonderful.
Very nice. And everything is good with your family this week? It's been a difficult week on the East Coast.
Yes.
In the Carolinas.
Yeah, they dodged the storm did something that did not cause any upset in the
Nice.
Carolinas.
Good. Very good.
For much of them. So
Yeah.
that was nice.
And you? Did you do something different? Did you cut your hair or something? I just haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. Things are well with you? Very good. It's such a beautiful experience for me to have so many of you being so quiet now. I love to be with you in the quiet as much as I enjoy being with you when we're discussing things and asking questions and having conversations about things. It's quite beautiful when so many of you are able to just be here quietly now. That we're able to be here in this presence together.
Rishi, it seems like my practice currently is noticing when I'm leaving the silence, and it was interesting in the reading how it referred to just be happy, be in the world and be happy. And what I'm noticing is the tendency to cling to the happiness, and that's when I notice that I've left the silence and then come back.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, yes. You see, it's not about leaving physically or something, right? It's about losing touch with yourself as you move through other kinds of experiences, more external kinds of experiences.
Yeah, and that tendency to try to cling to joy or cling to some object of...
Yeah, the clinging is what brings it down, huh?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yeah. But someday, if you just keep this up, what happens is someday you're just able to, you just feel the impulse to move and to flow into something different, and it just flows into something different. It's the mind that anticipates that flowing into something different may be a problem. So then it starts to cling to the silence, right? For many people it starts off, I don't know how it is for you right now, but for many people the way it starts off is that they think that what they need to do is stay home where it's quiet.
Very tempting.
Yeah, not leave it is very tempting. And, as you become more and more comfortable being with yourself and being in the quiet and being sort of your own closest friend and the person you'd most like to be with, because you don't have to talk to yourself anymore because your mind is slowed down. When you get to this point, it does become a challenge for a period of time to leave home and to go out into the world and to do the things you have to do. And that's where that clinging comes from, is from the mind that's anticipating that you're somehow losing something. But this is just because the silence hasn't become really deep yet. It's on the way there. Keep going. Because eventually you just walk out and you don't notice that you've walked out into the world, because the silence that you always are is what's walking. Right? It's not a me that's walking. It's not a mind that's walking. It's not a mind that's anticipating. It's just the flow of life itself.
Yes.
And also, but it's important that you do recognize if you're starting to get that kind of resistance, to stepping out into certain situations or into give yourself permission not to do that as well, to just hang back and to enjoy the solitude that you're feeling at that moment, if you can. Obviously, if you have an appointment with someone or you have a commitment, you can't really do that most of the time. If you have a class to teach or something, you've made that commitment, and so you go. And then this point becomes important. The practice becomes cling to nothing, right? Right at that moment. That's the primary practice. Cling to nothing, not even this happiness or this sense of quiet. And just free yourself to flow into what's next. But it's important that you begin to recognize when your own nature is telling you, now's the time you can just be quiet. And that you want to do that. When, you know, notice how much craving we do about all sorts of things in the world, food, people, experiences, and so on. But then when somehow the heart starts to crave silence, we say, oh, no, I shouldn't do that. You know. Well, this is the mind, of course, that's saying this, and this is coming out of the fear that the mind will have nothing to do. Nothing exciting will be happening. Nothing stimulating will be happening. So just understand that when you start to feel as though the silence has become important enough to you to stay home, then stay home. Because something else may be unfolding. Right? We're always asking ourselves, how can I use what's here now? So if what's here now is I need to go out and what's happening is clinging, then the practice is don't cling. Use what's here now. Likewise, if what's trying to manifest is solitude, the mind is going to say, go out, turn on the TV, let's go down to the club, let's go dancing, let's do whatever, let's go on a hike. All these things are lovely and wonderful in their own time, but not when they're taking the place of what the heart is truly asking for at that moment. So then if the heart is asking for solitude and for silence and for aloneness, then give it that. And see what is being offered to you at that moment. Because the mind will say, oh no, I don't want this. I'm just going to be bored. I won't have anyone to talk to. But maybe not. Maybe the heart is actually seeking something different. So always we're asking ourselves, how can I use this? Whatever this is. Whatever's rising in body, mind, and world is there for us to use like a mirror. How can I use this? For what? For our awakening. To realize that I'm already here, that I am the awareness itself. How can I use this experience that I'm having? Whether it's the experience to go out or to stay in. It's by doing this that we somehow learn over time that we can trust our own intuition. Right? Because it's intuition that really guides our lives in some ways. This search for our own knowing is what I'm calling intuition. So the question just naturally arises, how can I use what's here now in body, mind, or world, in whatever experience we're having, in order to open up to this knowing that comes from deep inside ourselves in any given moment. So that we stop living here, always acting and reacting in the world from the mind, and come to the heart. To know ourselves. Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarugamiva vandinam mrityor mukshiyamamritawa svaha nuva vu om sat jung hang om. Namaste. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
You're well?
I was sick.
Ah, you better now?
Yes.
Was it very difficult?
I thought about you, how your pain. You used to be in a lot of pain, and one of the things you shared, when you have a headache, you're in pain. There's, at least for me, there's an automatic, not good, bad.
Yeah, bad.
Bad. But I don't think you even think that. You just
No, you just tense up all over.
that's it. Bad. Headache. Bad. Not good. Not what's supposed to happen. And I had the experience of just going, okay, it is a headache. Yeah, I'd rather not have it. But instead of jumping in quickly and saying good or bad, it's just a headache. I'm not my body. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings. And the headache went away. And I go, whoa, that's pretty cool. You know, I go, I don't think this is meant to be a technique, you know, that you get rid of things. I've had quite a few experiences of being in the, knowing the silence, who I am, and that which doesn't come and go. Sometimes what to do with, at work, I meditated lunch, and I just came out with so much energy, enthusiasm, just so happy. And I was bubbling over, and I was just, and I thought, maybe I should restrain it a little bit, just kind of, maybe I don't know. I mean,
Too much happiness?
too much happiness. Big problem.
Big problem. Yeah.
Big problem.
Yeah. You see how the ego does this, right?
Big problem. I just love your pictures of you and Muji. I watched Muji last night on YouTube. He's got so much on YouTube. And I just love your pictures of Muji, the one right there especially with the two of you.
Yeah.
And his joy and his laughter. I'm in a good place.
So, have you ever seen him shut down happiness or joy or laughter?
Muji?
Yeah.
I have heard Adyashanti once say, just kind of sometimes just don't let it all out, kind of contain it a little bit maybe. And But I have never heard Mucci say that.
I've seen him laugh for half an hour on, so he doesn't often restrain that very much.
No, okay.
But at the same time, I do understand what you're saying. You're into work environment, so you come out of, your lunch meditation and you're exuding joy and happiness, and then you walk back into the workplace. And that's a place that maybe you do want to contain just a little bit. Right? Because people feel that joy and happiness. You don't need to demonstrate it.
Right. I don't need to talk.
Yeah.
Get all excited. But anyhow.
Yeah, but it's a natural tendency, Just recognize, too, that it's also a natural tendency that when we feel joy and happiness, we like to share it with people.
I think spiritually, I went on a retreat 2 years ago with Adi Ashante. And at the retreat, I used the question that had been my big, powerful glimpse. What doesn't come and go? What doesn't come and go? What doesn't come and go?
Yes.
But afterwards, I was in a cheap Motel 6. It was really run down. And I just had this powerful, and it hasn't really left me for a couple of years, intimacy with everything. Everything looked so beautiful. And the light, and this is a really bad Motel 6. and it was the light and everything just was so beautiful. And I just sat there for a long time going, how does this reconcile with what doesn't come and go? Because all the beauty comes and goes. But there's an intimacy I've had for the last couple of years, just an intimacy with the simplest things. The bird that was hooting just a few minutes ago, and the creek, and just sometimes the breeze. I feel this intimacy, and I think, what a paradox. All that comes and goes. You know what I'm saying? There's that which comes, I'm not sure I'm wording it, but they seem like opposites. But they're not.
No, they're not. Of course not.
Because all the bird comes and goes, it will die.
Because the ultimate recognition is oneness, you see. This sense of oneness, a sense of being present with all that is. Yes? Yeah.
Intimacy.
Yeah. In a very intimate way. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Awareness.
So they're not opposites.
Awareness and love they're not opposites, are they? Awareness and love. Awareness has a sense of, people think of you being aloof, kind of, I am aware, I'm over here, looking over here, detached.
That's not my definition of awareness. Or my experience of it. Actually, it's the opposite of that, because what you're talking about, it's like this recognition that the more presence there is, the more consciousness, awareness, without any interference from I, the more intimacy there is with everything. Yeah? See, it's not until the mind interjects something about the experience you're having. So you're in the rundown hotel, and suddenly you have this experience of intimacy with everything that is. And then the mind starts to play with that. It starts to separate, it starts to try to distinguish, it starts to try to understand in some way. This is the first movement away from the intimacy you're talking about. And what we, as practitioners, what we are strengthening our ability to do in a way is just to allow that intimacy to arise and stay there, without the mind interfering with it, trying to distinguish one thing from another, but rather to feel that unity, that wholeness, that fulfilled completeness that we are, which doesn't separate from any experience. And it's that place which we fall back into now, when this silence comes. We just fall back into it. It's already there. We're not creating something, it's there. We just fall back into it when we remember.
Gangaji had this question that really was good for me. Most of my spiritual practice, I would say, was surrender or letting go. And that way, but she asked the question, what is it that's holding on? And when I heard that question, I realized I felt that I wouldn't say the ego, but the controlling, the thinking, the grasping, and conditioning. Actually, the shortest word is conditioning. It was all my conditioning is gone.
Yes.
I know I'm jumping around.
No, but this is the power of the inquiry, and that's just another form of the inquiry, right? We're looking into the root of our experience and asking in some way, is this true? Right? So when she said, ask that question, what you have to do is you have to look for this artificial, personal, separate me.
That's it. It's all that. Personal.
Correct.
Very, very personal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And of course, either in a moment or over time, you come to realize that me doesn't exist. So this is the foundation of the inquiry. Of all of these questions asked by different teachers and pointed to by different sages. Who am I? What is aware? Am I aware? All these different forms of the question. What are you talking about when you say I? What is this me that you're referring to? These are all forms of the inquiry. And it's our persistence with this question in the face of all the variations in our thoughts, mind, and world experience. Right? It's that persistence in that questioning. And our willingness to hang out in the direct perception of not knowing answers to anything, and yet still realizing that when there is no answer to this question, still there is the direct experience. I am. Awareness is here. Mind is destroyed. Awareness is here.
I happened to remember the other day, amidst some of my mind stuff, what Eckhart said, and it's a nice technique. Who?
Yeah.
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 It just kind of does it, you know.
This is the inquiry from all these different teachers. We're on a world tour of Invite the Teachers today. All the different forms of inquiry.
And I'm so happy to hear you mention the ones that I listen to and love so much.
Yeah.
Adishanti. I love Adishanti.
Yeah,
and
Yes, absolutely.
And I came here today because I wanted to have the experience and see what it would be like being with other people rather than doing all this just alone all the time.
Yes.
And that's why I came.
Yes.
And
Beautiful.
last Sunday
Well,
I
welcome.
came outside and he was coming in the midst, and I wanted to wait until I came at the beginning. And my spiritual name is Prem Panta. I was an Osho devotee back in 1980. But I just love the masters, and it's so wonderful to hear how they just kind of say the same thing, only a little bit differently.
Yes, because each of us is different in terms of our manifestation, so different ways of forming this question appeal to us differently. Yeah. You're welcome. We're here every Sunday, so you can come and bring your presence and sit with us every time.
Thank you. And so I just feel very free to get up and let my body move a little bit, because it's difficult for me to sit a long time. And I heard someone say the other day that it's very good not to sit over 20 minutes at a time. And so I just get up and I do whatever I need to do, and I sit back down, because I feel free to do that.
Yes. And also, you don't have to stay for the whole 3 hours, or however long we happen to be here on a given day. So part of what we do here is people come and go according to what their needs are.
Yes.
at that given moment. Some people like to come for the kirtan in the beginning. Other people not so much. They want the silence. So this satsang is here for people to use as they feel they need to.